What is up, Maniacs? My name is Zach. I am the Millie Maker Maniac. Welcome to another episode of the Millie Maker Maniac podcast. We are doing a Best Ball Mania draft today. We are spending $25 for our shot at 2 million bucks. Freaking awesome. We're on a freaking Wednesday afternoon right now, spending $25 for a chance to win 3 million bucks. Sorry, 2 million bucks in this case, to see whether or not we know ball. And I got news for you. We know ball. So let's dominate these 11 other people in this pod. Let's go win 2 million bucks. Today we'll be drafting out of the 10 spot. Don't mind the back end of the draft. I did just update my rankings. Pretty low on James Cook. I got 6% of him here, but I only have 2% of him on DraftKings. And the more I looked at it, I don't want that to be my position. So I'm going to try to increase my exposure to him. It's a decent chance that I'll end up with him at this spot. I would take Taylor or Lamb ahead of him if they're still there, but if they're gone, then I will go Cook and try to increase that exposure a little bit. And it does indeed fall that way. So this is a James Cook team. Would love to get him with Genty, Walker, or Jefferson. Any of those three feel real nice. I'm not a huge fan of Barkley, but I'm behind ADP on him, I should say. But at pick 15, that's not a bad spot for him either. So I'd be open to that. But Genty or Walker are the guys that I prefer. There goes Walker. So now we're holding out hope for Genty, which we might get because he did pass on Genty to take Walker. He goes Chase Brown. So we got a little hope. See if he goes Barkley. No. He does go Genty. So we are going to get Barkley here. My percentages aren't showing up here, but yeah, we'll go with Barkley. Highest ranked guy here. I'll refresh after this to get my spike week percentages back up. Sometimes on the first pick, it doesn't register properly for whatever reason, but love that tool. Helps make sure that we're getting the exposures that we want to get. I don't want every single James Cook team to have Barkley on it. I want to have it. There's a range of guys here that I think can have success, and I want to make sure that I'm pairing those guys together. So robust running back start here. That tends to be what you get at the end of the draft, as far as if you're picked 10 through 12 in that range. Obviously, a very running back heavy section of the draft. Really, I'll be open to however the board falls to us as far as what position to take next. I am interested in getting some James Cook and Josh Allen teams. So if Allen falls to us, I'd be open to that. And then I also want to get another adjustment that I recently made is moving Devonta Smith up primarily so I can get more exposure to him. I'm low on both him and Olave more than I want to be. I don't necessarily need to be at market on those guys, but I don't want to be 1 and 3% that I am now. So those are other guys that I want to make a priority in these with this draft. I've got 37 more drafts to go on BBM, and then I got about 30 left in the Best Ball Millionaire tournament on DK. So just want to make sure as I'm getting closer to the end that I really have my exposures tuned in to what I want them to be. So did a review of that today, and those were a couple of the adjustments that I felt like I wanted to make. I do want to get more Smith and more Olave on my teams. A big range of wide receivers in my rankings. So it's looking like we'll probably go wide receiver and then maybe Josh Allen if he falls to us at the next pick. But there's just too many guys here that I feel like I need to take ahead of Allen. So we'll see if we can get Allen to fall a few spots past ADP and take him in the 4th round. If we can, awesome. If not, we will probably just go another wide receiver out of this range here. Got 2 Igbuka teams with Cook, so I'm actually gonna go Garrett Wilson here. It's a little bit behind where I actually have him ranked, but I want to, again, spread those exposures out, especially in these first 4 rounds. The the first 4 rounds are where you're gonna get the majority of your league winners, and so I want to have different combinations of guys with my first round picks in case those, league winners are guys that I don't have huge stands on. So just wanna balance out those exposures, especially in the early rounds. So Josh Allen does go there, so that dream is dead, but that's alright, we will pivot. Alright, so we will end up with Teddy Miller, except I have a ton of him with Cook. Let's actually call an audible here. Let's get some Cam Skattebo here. Don't have as much of him as I would like, and I've got plenty of Teddy McMillan with Cook, so let's change it up a little bit just from a dispersion standpoint. Cam's looked good in camp so far. Seems like he's healthy off of the broken leg last year, fractured ankle. Obviously a super scary injury, but everything is pointing towards him being the bell cow there. He can catch passes. He seems like a super talented player. I hope that he is back to where he was last year, but if he physically is able to be where he was last year, he was a dynamic player and I think has a potential to be a top 12 running back, and we're getting him. I think he was RB19 there. So pretty good value. And again, we're kind of building around Cook because I don't have a ton of Cook teams and want to make this lineup a little unique. And again, in these first 4 rounds, like we get so locked in on ADP. It's like I can't take this guy 5 picks ahead of ADP. That makes me a bad best ball player. I totally disagree. Like the range of outcomes for those guys, they're all like a similar range. Like those ceilings are all pretty close. Really, we're making bets on who is going to hit their ceiling. That really is what wins best balls, is those outliers and those guys that hit their ceiling. Those are the guys that have that massive advance rate. And so I don't want to be so overly confident in my ranking abilities that I just like build the same team over and over. If there's a reasonable range of outcomes where some of these guys have higher ceilings or hit their ceiling more often, I want to pursue that, right? Like I want to make sure that I'm not missing the right combo. Like if I'm doing the same combos over and over and one of the players in that combo is wrong, then my season's pretty much dead. But if I play around a few core players and then mix up my combinations around them with guys that have reasonable outcomes for a high ceiling, I'm not trying to make bad picks just because anybody could hit a ceiling. If I genuinely think a guy can hit a ceiling, and it's like there's a likely outcome for that, then I don't want to fade that. What I want to fade is where it looks like guys' ceiling is really like where they're being drafted. That I don't want to draft a guy where everything needs to go right for him to pay off his value. I want to draft a guy where even if it doesn't go perfectly for him, he likely is still going to pay off his ADP. But if he does hit his ceiling, he could be a league winner. He could be a guy with a 40% advance rate. And Parker Washington's one of those guys that I do think has a potential to be the league winner. I think he's a guy based on all the buzz that we're hearing out of camp and the history of Liam Cohen's F receivers, and it looks like he's going to play that role full time. That's a guy that could be a top 5 wide receiver. Like it's a small chance that he's that high, but top 12 feels very doable with how they're talking. Like, if he gets peppered with 160, 150 targets this year, this is a guy that should have been drafted in the second or third round. So that's what when we're looking when we're playing best ball, that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to target guys with a small miss, big hit profile. That's we want to just load our team up with a ton of those guys where they're not being drafted at their ceiling. They're being drafted at like probably their median outcome, but they have ceiling above that could really propel us to having a high advance rate and having teams, advance in the playoffs because they have that big weekly upside. We're wanting season long upside and we're wanting weekly upside with in a perfect scenario, we want that opportunity with also a pretty low floor because we don't want guys that just like were our complete whiffs where we're taking just boom and bust guys. We want solid guys with boom potential. That's really what we're pursuing. And I think so far we're building a team that has a lot of those guys. Cook, he's our first round pick, so we need him to, match what he did last year, or even a little bit better. We can go over and look at his profile on the site real quick. He had 8 boom games last year. Finishes RB6, which is, I think, where we took him. Where's he being drafted? He was being drafted as RB5, so we're right in line with that. And so we've seen it before. He should be able to pay that off. And I think there's a little bit more upside there because they're talking about passing him the ball a little bit as well, so that could expand his role. So there's a ceiling for him. In the first round, there's going to be a decent amount of floor for every player because if you're drafted in the first round, you're being drafted kind of at your ceiling in most scenarios. All right, so we're going to go Trevor Lawrence here and get that Parker Washington T-Loss stack. Switch to this view for y'all. Drag this over. I forget on Underdog that I can do the separate screen. I think it's easier to see the draft there for y'all. But anyways, coming up on our next pick here. Let's look at the squad. We currently we're at a 1-3-3 build. We're pretty set at running back. So we could go wide receiver or tight end here. I'd probably take Tucker Kraft if he gets here. He does ball. Yeah, I don't have a ton of Kraft. Everything in camp is sounded positive for him playing. I think it's just a good value right here. We could add maybe Golden later and get the love stack too. So far the team, we got a 3 running back build. 3 out of our first 4 picks were running backs who went James Cook in the first round, Saquon Barkley in the second, Garrett Wilson with our 3rd pick and our first wide receiver, Cam Skattebo, Parker Washington, Carnell Tate. We finished up our stack with Washington with Trevor Lawrence, and we added Tucker Kraft. So quarterback-wise, we could have a little stack with Skattebo and Dart. We could go Wilson and Geno later. We could add Cam Ward. Ward's another guy that I have like none of that I do see a ceiling case on that I want to pursue a little bit. So we'll probably make it a priority on this team to get Cam Ward to go with Tate. We'll see if maybe we can get Wan'Dale Robinson if it falls appropriately. But I like the complexion of this team so far. Probably need to get a little stronger at wide receiver. But I think there's depth at wide receiver. As we get further in the draft, there's some good picks that we can add on to this. We can also add on to our Jaguar stack with like a Hunter later on. So I'm probably either going to go Harold Fannin or Matthew Golden here. I think I'm just going to go Fannin. That gives us another quarterback option late where we can add Shador. But this also would just become a 2 tight end team for me. Unfortunately, they have the same bye, so I'm going to pass on that. Let's go ahead and we'll just get Wandale on this team. Said we were going to go with we're going to pursue getting Cam Ward, so let's just go ahead and lean into that stack and say that those guys have a lot of success this year, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. I think it's very, very possible with Brian Daboll there as the offensive coordinator and just better weapons for Cam Ward. You could see them having more success than what they had last year. So I think I'm going to go Concepcion here. I like Fannin, but again, I've already spent some capital on tight end, and if I have to, it would make sense to have those two together if it could just be a 2 tight end team, but I would have to waste another roster spot on a tight end later because they share a bye, and I think Concepcion has big time upside, maybe even more than Fannin. So I'll pull Concepcion up a little bit from ADP there to give me another wide receiver with big upside. I know this is kind of a bold prediction, maybe too much of a comparison, but Concepcion's got a lot of vibes around him, similar to what we saw with Justin Jefferson in his rookie year. I think he's an exceptional talent. I think he's in the right place with Todd Monken, who has a background as a wide receivers coach and tends to put a little extra effort into the wide receivers. As I saw him talk about that in an interview, how he's always got a soft spot for the receivers and always really coaches up that position group. I think that's a real positive for KC Concepcion. And I think they're going to be in environments this year where they're going to have to score a lot of points to stay in games. And I think they're going to try to do that in a more aggressive fashion than what they did last year with Shador at quarterback. I have confidence in Shador. If you haven't already, check out my video that I put up with my top 5 QB exposures. In that, you can see my second highest invested quarterback is Shador Sanders. I got about, I think it was $1,300 invested in Shador Sanders having a good year this year in best ball. I feel really confident in it. I know that I'm in the minority with that viewpoint, but I'm okay with that. I feel confident in the move, and I think he's going to outperform his ADP by a pretty good margin, and could be a real fun part of some teams. So, anyways, let's lock in here. Our pick coming up. Let's see, what is Cam's ADP? He's 144. So we do got to take him with one of these next 2 picks. Could go Likely here. He's fallen a little bit. Let's go Chris Rodriguez. I've got a huge bag of Baseball Tootin. That's really one of my big bets this year. I don't have a lot of Rodriguez. Let's build a team where it's not Tootin. Instead, it's Rodriguez that is the guy that you wanted to have. And then we'll go with Cam with this next pick. Feels weird not clicking names like Denzel Boston in that range, but wanted to commit to adding more Ward. I think that's probably why I don't have much Ward. It's not that I'm I don't think that he can hit ceiling, but it's just I want him to be around cheaper. Like if he was going at 154, I'd have a lot of Cam Ward, but at 135, Bryce Young is a guy that's there later on, and I have a lot more of him. I think their ceiling is pretty similar. I think they're also pretty similar likelihoods of happening as well. So I end up taking the cheaper guy more often. But that being said, I don't want to not make any plays on a guy that I think has similar ceiling to a guy that I'm taking around later. And, I want to have some plays where he does hit a ceiling because I think it's a realistic possibility. I don't want to fade things that I think could happen with reasonable opportunity, right? Like reasonable consistency from an outcome standpoint. Could this actually occur? I do think it's something that could actually occur in without it, anything too crazy happening. So I want to make sure that I've made bets where that is the outcome. All right, let's do a quick recap. So we're at 4 running backs with Cook, Barkley, Skattebo, and Chris Rodriguez. So solid running back room. We might add like a Jaden Blue or a Marshawn Lloyd later on, but we don't have to. And then our wide receiver room, we're making bets on Garrett Wilson and Parker Washington having career years, Carnell Tate and Wan'Dale Robinson. So we got the Tennessee passing game, and I would assume the vast majority of their targets on a week in and week basis. So if they do hit any ceiling, we got the right guy more than likely. So like that setup, we got Casey Concepcion, who is a big swing. And then at quarterback, we've got 2 stacked QBs in Trevor Lawrence and Cam Ward. So like how this is falling right now. If Hunter continues to fall, we will definitely take him here at pick 154. Need him to drop a few more. If not, we would go Omar Cooper. And Hunter gets swiped right in front of us. That's okay, though. We will end up going with Cooper here. When you can get a first-round wide receiver at pick 154, I think that's a pretty good pick. It's probably going to be an up-and-down season, but an up-and-down season can pay off pretty easily at pick 154 with his talent. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go Ryan Flournoy here. Basically right at ADP, a little bit ahead of ADP. Gives us a little week 17 stack with Skattebo there. I think he's going to have standalone value. I think he's a decent pick where he is if everybody stays healthy on the Cowboys. But if there were an injury to Lamb or Pickens, he's got big time weekly upside. And I think enough value where he'll pay off this ADP, even if everybody stays healthy. He's a guy that's just seems to have really worked his way into a significant role and has some ceiling that if Pickens or Lamb are out, we could see as well. I thought about taking Marshawn Lloyd right there. Probably need to move him up a little bit in the rankings because both Blue and Lloyd, I think, are going to continue to go up. And I want to mix them in a little bit in this 14th and 13th round. When they get past that, I don't really want to mix them in too much. I got a decent amount of them in the 17th and 18th. I was pretty early to that. Now, I don't have like a massive percentage. I think I'm at like 7-ish% on both. But I feel pretty good about that number where I was getting them. But I don't want to while they're still in this 13 to 14 range, I think they're decent picks. I think Blue has the potential to eventually just earn more time. I don't think Javonte is a guy that would prevent that. Like Javonte is solid and it had a really good fantasy year, obviously, last year. But he's one of those guys that I very much think is being drafted at his ceiling, and there's really no upside from where he's at. So he's a guy that I'm not taking much of at all. And I do think that one of the outcomes that's possible is Jaden Blue just winning that competition as the season goes on and becoming the primary back. And then obviously, if Javonte has an injury, which he's dealt with injuries throughout his career, then Blue obviously would have big contingent value there. So I think there's 2 different ways where he can have a solid outcome. Same thing for Lloyd. The biggest thing with him is staying healthy, but sounds like he is healthy. Put a lot of effort into it this offseason when it saw the same people that Christian Watson when it saw um, to try to alleviate his hamstring issues. So overall, I think that there is a a bull case for him making it healthy throughout the year. Then you have the issues with Josh Jacobs where he might get suspended, he might not. And then you have, I mean, and then right now Jacobs has an injury as well. So there's a lot of different ways where I think it makes sense for Lloyd to pay off and everything about him when he's healthy. It sounds like people are just raving about how dynamic of a player he is, and that he could be end up being a guy that just is a bell cow type running back. So that kind of upside we want to make bets on. I don't want to if he's like getting in the 12th or the 11th round, like that's too expensive of a price for that type of profile. But where he's at right now, I think is fine. Okay, so we went with Sadiq there. We do got a pretty significant jet stack here, so I guess we could make a Geno bet here. Let's see, what's Geno's ADP? He's at 186. Do I want to make a Geno bet or do I want to make another Shador bet? Let's go with Geno. We've got three of his main pass catchers in Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper, and Kenyon Sadiq. So we're already making a bet that this offense has success. And if that is going to be the case, I think Geno has a good year or at least good moments. There's a chance, obviously, that he gets benched by the end of the year, but the way that we've built this team, we're saying that the Jets outperform. And if the Jets outperform, then Geno's probably still, still involved. So our quarterback room is wrapped up now with Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, Geno Smith. I'm sure that's the first time I've had that combination. um, but I don't mind it. And we've built the team around these quarterbacks having success. So if they hit, we got a good team. If they don't, we're probably screwed. Feel pretty good at every position with Trevor Lawrence, Cam Ward, Geno Smith at quarterback. And then running back, we got James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Cam Skattebo, and Chris Rodriguez. Wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, Parker Washington, Carnell Tate, Wandale Robinson, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, Ryan Flournoy. At tight end, we've got Tucker Kraft and Kenyon Sadiq. We're on the clock here. I'm going to go ahead and take Sean Tucker. He's primarily a contingent upside guy, but he's had big boom games in the past. if anything were to happen to Bucky, he would have a pretty substantial role. Feels like Gainwell is just the pass catching back. I think that he could have some just week to week usability with the potential of being the goal line runner. So in round 17, I think he's a solid pick. I think I want to go upside play here. You know what? I'm just going to make this a 4 QB team, and I'm going to add Shador. We've got some lower end stacks right now as far as like your quarterback draft value, but I think this is a team that I think every room feels pretty solid, so we can take a shot on a couple different stacks that can hit in the playoffs for us. And I feel like I'm covered at every position. I've got late season upside as well as early season stability here. So we need a few things to go our way on this team, but I think we took some nice ceiling upswings that definitely are in the range of possibilities of hitting. So let's quickly recap the team and we'll get out of here. But this is what $2 million looks like, my friends. It looks like James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Garrett Wilson, Cam Skattebo, Parker Washington, Carnell Tate, Trevor Lawrence, Tucker Kraft, Wan'Dale Robinson, Casey Concepcion, Chris Rodriguez, Cam Ward, Omar Cooper, Brian Flournoy, Kenyon Sadiq, Geno Smith, Sean Tucker, and Shador Sanders. That's what I'm talking about, my friends. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Check out MillionMakerManiac.com. It's a great resource if you're serious about best ball or DFS. We've got a lot of great information there and a lot of tools coming. Become an OG Maniac. Only costs $50 a year, and you are locked in for that price forever. And we are going to be bringing on more and more tools. Like I said, I'm trying to make this my career full time. So anything you can do to help that, if you like what you heard today, I'd appreciate it if you do so. All right, my friends, I appreciate you. Good luck, Maniacs, and we'll see you in the next episode.